Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Headstrong, the podcast where I sit down with somebody in the public eye to talk about their lives, but notably their vulnerabilities that they've experienced in the hope to get other young adults and other people to speak about their own. So my guest this week is actor Tyger Drew-Honey. Tyger was made famous by playing the oldest brother in the hit TV series Outnumbered. Tyger is still acting today, but to get to this point, he's had to experience everything that he has, from bullying at school because of his fame as a child actor, to the fame itself and those critiques that have come with it. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. Everybody, I'm really excited on this week's episode of Headstrong to welcome into the room Tyger Drew-Honey. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thanks, mate. Not too shabby.
Thank you for welcoming me into your establishment here.
Yeah, this is the Drew-Honey establishment. This is
nice
the manor.
Just for everyone who doesn't know who you are, which is almost nobody, I'm no doubt.
No, sure.
Tyger's not your real name, is it?
It is my real name. It is my...
You're christened Tyger.
Well,
or born, your parents giving you the... when you were...
I can see where this is going, so I'm just going to give you the story now.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, both of my parents met, and they were on the stripping scene back in the 80s, I think it was, and they were both called Lindsay. They had different spellings of the name, but they were both called Lindsay. They met through a mutual friend who was like, I know someone called Lindsay, you guys should go on a date. Anyway, they got on and they decided to start a relationship. And when they came to the point in their relationship where they wanted to have a kid, they had this lovely idea that, hey, we're both called Lindsay with slightly different spellings. Let's merge our two spellings of Lindsay together and call our son Lindsay. So I have an amalgamation of the spellings in my Lindsay, which is Lindzi. So my name at birth was Lindsay James Drew-Honey. But then, interestingly, as a very small infant, as infants generally are, I had a problem with my... I had a problem with my vocal cords, and so for about the first 6-7 months of my life, rather than crying like a normal baby would, going wah wah wah, I would go, because I was incapable of not doing so, wah wah wah. And so gradually my parents started to nickname me Tyger. They were like, "You're a growly little tiger, aren't you? You're a growly little tiger." And then one day when I was about 8 months old and my voice had thankfully resolved itself, my parents had this moment where they called me Lindsay and I didn't look. And they called me Tyger and I looked. And they had a eureka moment. They realised that they'd called me Tyger so much that I'd learnt my own name as Tyger. So they went to the official office and they said, we need to put the name Tyger in his name somewhere. So we're going to put it in as his middle name. Lindsay James Tyger Drew-Honey. We'll spell it with a Y. And although it's his middle name, that's what we'll always call him. And that's what everyone will call him. Yeah, Tyger is actually my middle name, and my first name is Lindsay, in honour of my parents, but I still consider Tyger my real name because it's just what I've been called my whole life, if you get me.
Yeah, totally. So I suppose Tyger Drew-Honey is your stage name as well now?
Well, I mean, yeah, like, for instance, if I had to apply for a new passport or something, I would have to put Lindsay James Tyger Drew-Honey. Likewise, on insurance documents for shows and stuff, I have to put all of that stuff. It's on my driving licence. But, if it was going to say... tonight, Matthew, I'm going to be, it would be just the Tyger Drew-Honey.
Sure. Well, I'm not going to lie, I think it's a pretty awesome name.
Oh,
I think most young men or young adults would be pretty happy having the name Tyger.
Yeah, I'm fond of it.
I think it's pretty cool. Do you know any other Tigers?
Oh, I do, actually.
Do you?
Yeah.
No way.
This is very strange. This is one of those stories. First day of year one, opened the car door into another car in the school playground. Oh, it was a new boy. I was like, hi, new boy. And he was like, hi, I'm Tyger. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And it turns out this guy's name was Tyger. Turns out he also had the exact same birthday as me and was born about an hour in the same day of time, born about an hour after me. And then 2 years after we'd got to know each other, randomly bumped into him in Disneyland, Florida, and our rooms were next to each other.
That is just weird.
I mean, that is some bonkers stuff, isn't it?
That's the universe colliding.
Yeah. Some real sort of coincidences going on there.
All right, so you touched on it there, year one. Okay, so where did you grow up? Let's talk about your childhood for a little bit.
So I was born in Epsom. First house I lived in was in Stoke Dagenham. And then generally just my whole life lived around Surrey. went to secondary school in Epsom, so lived there for a little bit while I was doing my exams. And then since I was about 17, I've kind of been living on my own, and then realising I'm not very good at it, and then coming home and then making another go at living on my own, and then but I've finally been living on my own now properly since I've been about 21, and that's been down the road in Weybridge in Surrey.
It's not a million miles away from mum.
No, it's like just a 10-minute walk away, and my flat's one bed, and it's relatively small, and I had to choose between a washing machine and a dishwasher. And I chose dishwasher, so I have to still use mum's washing machine.
God, disaster. Oh no, sorry, mum.
And I know it is a chore for her, but I think the day that I say, actually, mum, do you know what? I do my own washing this week. I think a little bit of her heart will sort of wither away.
But she'll also be cracking open a bottle or something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, both your parents were in an interesting industry, shall we say? And I hope you don't mind me saying.
No.
How would you deem your upbringing as normal, or do you want to describe a little bit about what they did, perhaps, and then how that may have influenced what you might have done and stuff?
I suppose it's such a cliche to say what is normal, but to an outsider's perspective, you might think I had a totally abnormal upbringing because obviously my parents worked in the porn industry. But to me, it felt really normal. Like, my parents were fantastic parents, and them being in the porn industry wasn't something that they ever hid from me. As a younger child, when I was, say, sort of 9 or 10, I would have an understanding of it because we'd have these family friends around for like Christmas parties, and they'd all be, say, some of them would be porn stars. And my mum and dad would explain, they'd say, right, this is Pascal and this is Charmaine. Daddy takes pictures of Pascal and Charmaine having a special cuddle, and other adults find it nice to watch. And that was effectively my understanding of what my parents did at about the age of 8 or 9. And as I grew a bit older and got a bit more intelligent and started hitting puberty, I understood exactly what they did. And I understood that it wasn't completely normal, but I also knew that there was nothing to really worry or be ashamed about. And the fact that I never had a day when I was sat down at 13 and went, what? You mean, this is where all this comes from? This life you've given me comes from this? It wasn't like that. It was a gradual piecing together of facts as I just got more intelligent. And it was a sort of seamless realisation that my parents were porn stars, and it never really bothered me.
Sure. So would you say that you're close with each of your parents now? Because they're not together anymore, are they?
No, I am so close with both my parents.
That's great.
I am so lucky with my parents. I've been given 2 of the most fantastic examples of what it means to be a human being in planet Earth. But my parents aren't together, no, because my dad made some mistakes, and my parents split up. But in there was a couple of rough years that we had there. I didn't really speak to my dad much, but the strength that my mum and dad have shown in forgiveness and in realizing that we are a family and we've only got one life, and all these kind of existential things, I am so proud of them for being the people that they are. And yeah, my parents are like best friends nowadays, and I'm best friends with both of them. And although they're not together, I still feel like we have a lovely family unit, even though my dad's in Spain now,
Well, I was going to say, you clearly are very close with your dad still, because you were on holiday recently out there and it looked like you were having an awesome time with him, spending some proper family time together and stuff, so that was good.
Yeah, it was just a lovely family holiday. And we haven't had a lovely family holiday in quite a while. And so it was just really, really, really nice to just go away and just be together and love each other and just do things that we used to do when I was a young child, basically.
And I suppose about when you were talking about your childhood as well, you don't know any different. So that's why, if that's the upbringing that you're being brought up in, you don't know any different. No one else does either. So
yeah,
c'est la vie, isn't it?
And I was shown nothing but sort of love and compassion and good parenting, which is all you can really ask for as a child.
Absolutely. So you went to Epsom, a very decent school, I suppose, on the circuit, as one might put it. How was that for you? And what age did you go there? And what was that school mentality like when you were there?
Well, it was your typical kind of private boarding school. You know, we went to chapel. We went to school 6 days a week. We all wore suits. You know, it was very of that ilk, and I was very lucky to go there. And I didn't quite appreciate it at the time, but I don't think anybody does. When you're at school, you don't appreciate it and think, God, look at this school I'm walking around. But yeah, for me going there, it was one of the schools that a lot of people from my primary school went to. And I knew a few people there because of my friends' older brothers and sisters and stuff. And people knew that I was coming. People knew that the kid from Outnumbered, whose parents are porn stars, is joining the school next year, and his name's Tyger. And I dare say there was sort of a plan to pick on me. But I think there was sort of a plan to pick on me. Not really pick on me, and I still say I thoroughly enjoyed my time at the school. But I remember when I went into my second year at Epsom, there's always this mentality that the youngest kids coming in, the new year starting, just give them a bit of a hard time, because that's what you do at school, at like a boarding school. And so
they like to call it character building, don't they?
Character building, yeah. So when I was going there in my first year, you know, I saw a lot of that. There was a lot of, you know, a lot of the sixth formers would say things about my parents, which never really got to me in the sense of the fact what they were saying about my parents, but I always was upset at why they would want to upset me. I was like, they're obviously saying that because they want to upset me. And that was what upset me rather than what they're actually saying.
What age was this at?
So I would have been 13 at this age. And the extent of it, you know, it didn't really go too far, but there were a few incidents that I would have preferred not to happen, which were aimed at the profession of my parents. You know, there would be things like someone would do something to me which could possibly be considered assault.
Any specific examples, or?
Yeah, there were. I mean,
you don't have to. There
was one time where sort of I had a pool cue shoved up my arse, like quite forcefully, and these sixth formers were saying, you know, this is how your mum loves it. This is how your mum loves it, and you know, it was like my trousers got ripped and stuff. So it was like pretty
malicious and
pretty
vicious.
Not nice stuff, you know. And yeah, and you know, I had to say something at some point, and some people got in some trouble. I don't really hold anything against them. I'm, you know, in a strange way, I'm actually quite fond of some of them because they are nice guys. It was just that, you know, we're in a boys' house at a school like that. I don't know, it's that kind of male bravado thing coming to the surface.
A lot of testosterone going around.
Yeah, and I don't. You know, if I saw these guys in the street, I'd be going up to say hello to them. I wouldn't be avoiding them or going up and saying you're a dick. Do you know what I mean?
But there comes a point where you did have to say something because it was getting out of hand to a point that it wasn't comfortable for you as a 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, precisely.
At the end of the day, I mean, you are a kid and you've got emotions, and actually you had a very mature thought process, clearly, because you were saying they're actually doing this to a point to upset me. So why are they doing that? Surely their mentality is at some point gone wrong to have that thought process as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no question.
So I suppose, so you said you told on that kind of thing, but when you were at school, what kind of helped you get through some of those more difficult things? Obviously you're surrounded by your friends. You've already said that you're really close with your family and stuff. Was there anything that springs to mind that really kind of got you through those years at school? Not that I want to paint your school, your school
no,
career.
I mean,
poorly.
It wasn't really that hard to sort of get through. You know, I had some friends there, and I had a loving family, and I had, you know, at the time I had a booming acting career, and it wasn't too hard for me to rise above. No, I wouldn't say there was anything I really, you know, never had any therapy for it, or I never. Sure. I mentioned it to a teacher. It stopped, and sort of life kind of went on.
You just took the right process, to be honest, with the whole situation. Yeah. Fair enough. So you just mentioned it there. Obviously, for those who don't know, again, Tyger is an actor. And you're 23 now, right?
Yeah.
So that puts you in the industry for 12 years, 13 years?
I mean, 13 years.
Well, I suppose 23 years, if you really want to look at it.
Well,
because you're born into a family who are in the creative industries, I suppose.
Yeah, slightly different concept.
No, I know.
but yeah, so I did a school play when I was 10. I got scouted from that, and before I was 11, I was filming the pilot of Outnumbered. On my 11th birthday, I was filming an Armstrong and Miller show. So yeah, I started at this when I was 10.
So let's talk about that audition process for Outnumbered. So you were picked up from a show at school.
just did a school play, and basically the headmaster of our school, that we used to live next door to, actually, not the school, we used to live next door to a headmaster, so he was family friends with us. His kids had like this really nice sort of semi-English, semi-Irish accent, and so they did voiceover. And so our headmaster took the voiceover agent and said, come and watch our school play. And then basically I did a really good job as Squire Trelawney in Treasure Island, and she sort of
Big up.
spoke to me afterwards and was like, do you want to do some professional work? I sort of looked at my mum and was like, do I? Can I? And my mum was like, yeah. So I was like, yeah. Did a voice reel, did a couple of bits and bobs, a few voiceovers, and then soon enough, every now and then she had a screen audition come in, and she got one for Outnumbered. Actually, I this is something I would like to say, and I've never said this before, actually. The audition for Outnumbered, my family was actually going through a really tough time at that time, and my dad had done some sort of bad deal in the porn industry, and basically we had gangsters coming around our house in blacked out Range Rovers in the middle of the night, every night. And so we ended up moving into a hotel for about a month and a half while we sorted out this pretty scary situation. Where we were being blackmailed and threatened and stuff, and I had this audition come through for this show, and it was a really tough time, and it was the only time I ever got an audition and thought about saying, I don't really want to go to this one. It's the only time I ever thought about saying that, and I didn't. I actually went for it in the end, and that was the audition for Outnumbered. And I could have so easily not gone for that audition because of the stress we were under as a family. And I was just so grateful that for some reason in that moment as a little 10-year-old boy, I summoned the strength to do it. Because if I hadn't summoned that strength, I'm sure you wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be here now in this situation. But anyway, so I went for that first audition, and it was there was no script or anything. They basically just said, you sit there and I'll pretend to be your dad and I'm trying to get you to do your homework and you don't want to do it. And they just played a few scenes out like that. Slightly different context, but then when I came back for the second audition, rather than someone reading in with me, it was actually Hugh Dennis, and we did something like that. It was like, you want to play football in the garden and you're trying to get your dad to, but he doesn't want to. And they kind of just got you to improvise scenarios like that, and I did that, went back 3 times, did that, and then just one day got a call and I got the part. And at the time, we had no idea really what it was going to be. For me, it was just, oh my God, I'm going to be on TV. This is so exciting. But I don't think any of us realised that it would become Outnumbered and do, so well.
Well, like you say, the success of the show, you didn't quite know what it was going to be, and look how it's escalated from there.
Yeah.
Awesome for you. And also, you're having an improv audition with the master of improv himself, Hugh Dennis. That must have been pretty awesome.
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things at the time, don't really appreciate.
Yeah, exactly.
It's only really in the last sort of year or so of my life I've actually sort of got to a point of maturity when I've really been able to kind of put things in more perspective and realise a lot of the amazing things I've done and how lucky I've been and everything that I've taken for granted and stuff.
You seem in a really reflective place in your life at the moment, which is great, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
So just with Outnumbered, so you are an only child, but on the show you had a brother and sister. What was it actually like having to, act and pretend to have that? Did it feel abnormal? I know it's obviously a show, a TV show, but did it feel a bit awkward or weird to pretend to have a brother and sister when you'd never had one?
I guess, in a sense, yeah, there is that element of me being an only child and so never having to communicate with someone in a brotherly or sisterly way. But when we first started Outnumbered, I was sort of, I was 10, 11, and so I'd kind of reached, not a level of maturity, but I wasn't like a very small child anymore. I was near enough hitting puberty in the next couple of years. And whereas Dan and Ramona were sort of 5 or 6, so they were on the same wavelength and I was on a slightly different wavelength. So it was really easy for me to, when Ramona would show me drawings at the start, I'd be like, oh my God, wow, that's really, really amazing. And I just really loved their cuteness, and it was so easy for me to see them like little brothers and sisters in the positive way, in all the positive senses of being a brother and a sister. The thing that was hard at the start more so was when we would have to sort of argue and stuff, because that was less natural for me, because I wasn't naturally the kind of person who just went up to toddlers in the street and started arguing with them. And that's obviously what brothers and sisters do. So at the very start, our relationship was kind of all the positives of siblingship and none of the negatives. But then as we got to know each other better and we'd worked together for a couple of years, like me and Dan would have some of the most brotherly arguments ever. And we honestly, over a couple of years, we became like proper brothers and sisters because we'd spent day in, day out in the same rooms as each other, doing schoolwork together, acting together. You know, we developed those relationships. And so by the end, it was almost as if we were brother and sister.
Are you guys really close now?
Yeah, we're very close. I mean, we don't see each other especially often. I saw them at Christmas. I'll be seeing them in a few weeks' time for a barbecue. We generally see each other maybe once or twice a year, but every single time we see each other, it's, you know, I could not see them for 20 years and then go and see them and it would kind of be as if we'd never left each other. It's one of those kind of relationships.
That's
you know what
great.
I mean? We'd have a lot to talk about after 20 years, but there would be no awkwardness because, yeah, those relationships, every relationship I made from that show, honestly, every single one was a blessing.
So you talked about, obviously you were at a young age and you had to have some sort of tutoring or homework whilst you were on the job. How did that affect your school life and stuff like that? Because obviously you had to have a tutor on set sometimes, I suppose?
Yeah, so we do about 3 hours of, you had to do 3 hours of tutoring a day. This is until you've done your GCSEs. And you need a chaperone and you need to do 3 hours of tutoring a day. And that's fitted around your filming schedule. And so, yeah, it was one tutor for three of us. So I guess you could say we had a bit more sort of one-on-one treatment kind of thing. But the tutor we had couldn't possibly be a specialist in every single subject. So when I started to get towards my GCSE level sort of stuff, and I was trying to do that on set, often that was a bit difficult because, you know, it's difficult to find someone who can do GCSE French, GCSE Spanish, GCSE Physics, GCSE, you know. And so there was a point when the work got a bit harder that I did struggle a bit. And that's when I really had to, you know, try and balance getting in touch with my teachers at school and stuff. But overall, you know, it didn't affect my schoolwork at all. I did really well in all my exams. Every exam I ever took, I did really well in. And, you know, therefore I can't have missed out on anything along the way because I knew everything I was supposed to know pretty much. And so, although what I will say was it was tougher to find motivation, it was tougher because you still had this whole concept that it was kind of a day off and that you didn't have to go to school. And so then when you're like...
It's quite exciting for a, you know, young adult at that point. Just be like, no, I'm not going to school, I'm on a TV set.
But the thing is, if you've only done 2 hours and 15 minutes schoolwork that day, and you wrap at 6:15, you can't go home. You have to go upstairs to the tutor room and sit there on your own with the tutor once the other kids have gone home and finish your 45 minutes off. I mean, it's dark outside. You know, maybe you're used to working when it's dark outside when you get to university or something, but when you're, you know, a 12-year-old, you're not really used to sitting in class doing sums when it's completely pitch black outside and everyone's gone home. But you really had to get your 15 hours a week done. And that was sometimes a bit of a massive chore, even though it was exactly what you've been doing at school. When you're at school, it's kind of like expected, if you know what I mean.
So you've, like we said just earlier, it's kind of been quite a long time since you've been in the industry. I'm quite intrigued to hear from you how you feel like it's changed from when you got into it, when you started. Obviously, you're a bit younger, but now up to now as well. Like, how have you seen any changes or transitions in the industry? And obviously, it is a grueling industry for anyone that doesn't really know anything about it. I mean, it's cutthroat and you know straight to the point, really, isn't it?
I think the industry is rightfully so becoming more diverse. You know, we're seeing more people of colour coming through and doing well in the industry, which, you know, if you go back as far as, say, 50 years ago, you know, you saw mainly white people on TV, and mainly men. And I think as we move in this direction and the industry becomes a lot more diverse, I think the opportunities for it to move in so many different directions and be so much more exciting present themselves. I also think social media has played a massive part in the development of so many aspects of our world. And for me, I think most of those things that social media has presented us have been negative.
Well, you had an experience of it, didn't you?
Yeah, and I mean, even before my Instagram got hacked, it's not, you know, I personally am not a massive fan of social media. I've been trying to do my Instagram a bit recently, but I feel like I have to kind of force myself to.
I was going to say, it is a forced kind of platform.
I wish people just did stuff nowadays because they wanted to do it and they enjoyed doing it. I wish people just didn't do stuff nowadays so that they could tell everyone else about it. And that's what I feel like the world is becoming. I think social media has made everything, my industry included, a lot more kind of shallow and a lot more sort of image-based. And it makes a lot of people compare their realities to other people's highlights. And it inspires a lot of mental illness in young people and anxiety and depression. It brings us so much closer together in many ways, but I do also think it isolates and it alienates. And ultimately, I wish the world had developed in a slightly different way where we could communicate with the same effectiveness and the same ease and the same rapidity, but without
looking at a screen.
Without looking at a screen or without some of the connotations that come along with social media.
That's a great point. So, being an actor and stuff, you have obviously had to go up for these auditions. You got the Outnumbered one, awesome, and you've had some great consistent work. You had the documentary stuff, which was very entertaining, but you've obviously gone through this career so far and had to deal with some sort of rejection, because that's what this industry is, right? So even though you had these great roles in Outnumbered and stuff, where did that put you when you first got those rejections in, and how did that make you feel, mentally as well?
I think as a sort of predominantly child actor, I never really thought in terms of my whole life and career and everything. I just was doing what I was doing and getting jobs, and I was getting a lot of work. And then, there came a point when I wasn't getting as much work, and for some reason now, I was only getting repeat work. So I was getting jobs come in, which were a series of shows that I'd been cast in a while ago, and they were doing a new series of it. So I'd get that job. But there was a while when I didn't actually, land an audition for a long time. A lot of that is my fault. My head wasn't in the game for a long time, and there was an arrogance about me where I thought I didn't really have to put that much work in, and I would get stuff. There was a profound sense of entitlement and arrogance and something I do want to talk about in the future. It made me not really be in a position to be able to. For a few years, I wasn't in a position to perform properly. I wasn't in the right headspace to really go about being an actor in the right way.
What kind of thoughts were you having, like at this time when you were struggling?
Do I want to carry on acting? Do I just want to, kind of get a normal job and not have to worry about any of this kind of stress and people writing stuff about me and and people finding out secrets about me? And for a while I really lived in a kind of I just lived in fear about so many things. From about the age of 17 to 21, I just really had a sort of irrational fear of life, and I had this massive sense of impending doom surrounding everything, and it made me kind of, I don't know, I was stuck really. I didn't have any kind of plans. I was just getting on with everything, just hoping, in denial, expecting everything to suddenly get better. And yeah, it was a really tough time for me, because a lot of people always think that if you're an actor, you should have loads of money. And I've had a lot of time, I have earned a lot of money in my life, but I've also got a massive spending issue. And so there's been a lot of times in the last few years when I haven't had a great deal of money. And there's this whole image that I'm Tyger Drew-Honey, and I've felt this pressure to sort of uphold this image in front of everyone, and over time it just really, really got to me, and eventually I just kind of got to a point where, only way I can really put it is I had a sort of spiritual experience. That's the only way I can really put it. I had a spiritual experience that kind of, I woke up one day and I just had a new set of eyes. I hadn't asked for them, but I had a new set of eyes, and suddenly I saw the world differently. And since then, my my career has actually gone from strength to strength in a relatively short space of time. You know, I used to go for auditions and I'd go for 15 auditions and not get one callback. You know, this year I might have been for let's say 12 auditions, and I've had like 8 callbacks or something, and I've got 2 of the roles. Do you know what I mean? And these are just, I don't know, I don't really know why this sort of stuff happens when it happens, but I think everyone is really on a journey, and sometimes you just get a day which comes along that you're not expecting and totally changes everything for you. And yeah, I think that the one thing that I would say I'm proud of myself for is kind of not giving up on this industry and this career, because...
And yourself.
And myself, yeah, you're right, and myself. Thank you for putting that in, Lou. But yeah, it was... I'm glad that I stuck with it, because I could have thrown in the towel and done something different. And I'd have probably regretted it, because you know, I don't want to say I've had like an amazingly tough time, because I know everyone has tough times, and I've actually been very, very privileged in my life. It was just the mental state I was in for a while that I really struggled with, and I'm so grateful that I kind of had this moment where the fog just sort of cleared. I don't know.
I think between the ages of 17 and 21, you and actually most young adults are at that stage where they don't know what they're going to do in their life, their career. Do I go to university? Obviously, you're at a stage where you probably weren't even considering that. You wanted to just carry on with your acting. And I just think young adults are now, there's so much pressure to take the right path, but there is no right path. Each path is unique and different, and everyone should be able to explore their avenues in their own way.
Yeah. And like you say, everyone's has their own path. That's you know, that's been a big realization for me as well, because I was, as I was just talking about, it's the same kind of thing. My ego was massive, and my ego would look at people like look at people who were similar in sort of age and look to me doing really, really well, and I would feel such envy. I would feel such like, how unfair is it that they can get that role? What, you know, why is this not happening? You know, a real despair, real anger, bewilderment, and that, you know, just realizing that if that's not my journey, that's not my journey. You know, that is something that's been big for me as well, because I used to think there was only a certain amount of success, happiness, money, and love in the world, and that most of it should come to me.
Sure,
that's the way it should be. And like you just said, realising that everyone's path is different, and trying to remember on a daily basis that this is my path and yours is yours and everyone's is everyone's. And, you know, all these things that I once thought were so important really aren't. That's been big for me as well.
That's great. So you said you had this moment where the kind of fog cleared, or what, that spiritual moment. But was there anything in particular that helped you get through that mentally as well? Were you seeing anybody? Were there any particular mental exercises or anything that kind of helped you get through that? Or was it just a moment where you were like, right, I need to flick the switch and put my life on the right track now?
I knew what I had to do to get my life back on track, and I couldn't really, I kind of knew what I needed to do, but every single day I tried to get into that right headspace and make that change. I was just incapable of doing it. I just couldn't do it. And it was like I woke up one morning and all of a sudden I just kind of knew, as soon as I opened my eyes that morning, I was like, I'm going to be able to do it. It was more a realisation that I'd sort of been given the ability to... I don't know how to put it. I'd been trying to get my life on track for so long with no results. And then just suddenly I didn't try, but I just had the knowledge. I just knew that when I tried this time, it was like a strength had been given to me. That's why I call it a spiritual experience, because I felt like I was given strength from somewhere that wasn't from me. And I'm not religious, but it was odd like that.
Well, you clearly have like a tremendous amount of self-will and determination, so that something must have gone superbly right for you. So what is next for Tyger Drew-Honey? Like, what can we expect to see you in something? You said you got 2 roles. Anything you can share?
Yeah, you know, I got some things in the pipeline. I've got some interesting voice work for a cartoon coming up soon. Today after I've finished this lovely chat with you, I'll be going off to start shooting a film tomorrow. You know, I've got some stuff in the diary at the end of the year, which hopefully be in the theatre and stuff. So yeah, this year's going well. I've got work this year for like the whole year pretty much. But the plan is to try and always make the best decision about things. Try and make good decisions. Try and be a good person. Try to always remember what to be grateful for, and to appreciate the things that I have that I've taken for granted. To keep working hard, to really put as much effort into every opportunity that comes my way, but also have the kind of graciousness and serenity to know that if it doesn't go my way, that's not my fault, because I did everything I could.
Absolutely. So that's obviously very inspirational advice, I reckon, as well. But I'm going to ask the question anyway. What piece of advice would you pass down to some young adults that you may have held onto in your life that has maybe got you through some of those tough moments? Is there something that you've held onto that you think, do you know what, actually, maybe somebody out there listening might take inspiration from this? So anything that comes to mind?
I think it's easy sometimes to get so wound up in ourselves and in selfishness is a totally natural human thing. But I think nowadays we can really get so wound up in selfishness and be kind of so blinkered from other things going on in the world. I think someone in the supermarket might be really, really quite moody to you. If you bump into them, they might be really, really moody to you, and that might really upset you. And you think, that's totally you dickhead. That's totally out of order. But the way I try and think about things like that, which I didn't used to, I used to just snap at people. I ask myself, do I know what that man's going through today? Do I know exactly what's happened to him today? Inevitably, the question is no, I've got no idea what he's going through today. And so I try and be more tolerant with things today. I try and complain less. I think what it comes down to is gratitude. For me, it's gratitude. Every single day that I get to the end of the day and I haven't had a car crash, neither of my parents have been diagnosed with a fatal illness, my dogs are still here, my girlfriend is still here, and every single day that I have like that, because sometimes seem like such a boring day, but all those things that have happened, I'm so grateful for, it's just important to stay grateful. Gratitude is something I didn't have in my life till recently, and gratitude is just so underrated. I think we should all try and practice a bit more gratitude.
And finally, what does the word headstrong mean to you?
The word headstrong, to me, it would mean balanced and robust and thoughtful.
Great. Well, thank you so much for giving up some time. Good luck with the rest of the year and all your endeavours, Tyger. Thank you so much for coming on to Headstrong. It means a lot, and I hope everyone listening will find some inspiration in the pearls of wisdom that you've given me.
Thank you very much, man. I enjoyed myself, and I hope everyone listening enjoyed it too.
Cheers.
So a huge thank you to Tyger for giving up such valuable time during shooting to have a chat with me on this podcast. I think we can all agree that Tyger's lived a really interesting life, and I hope you guys go check out his Instagram page and also his projects when they come out later in the year. A huge thank you to Harry Neal, Jack Graham Thomas as always, to Ed Hopkins, Lucy Jones, and to you guys who keep coming back to listen to this podcast. It means a great deal to me that you are willing to give up some time and come and listen to these people opening up. But most importantly, thank you to those who have left a review or subscribed. Keep passing it on as well to anybody who you might think might benefit from this or just enjoy listening to it. I hope that we can get as many people on a path to becoming headstrong. Thank you.